Hi, I'm Perry Atkinson, General Manager here at theDove. Hey, check out our other videos and check out our website at theDove.us. Well, welcome to a special edition of Focus Today. Delighted to have in the studio, we found him in the Lost and Found department. Bob Justice with us, home from New York. And Bob, we're just standing by seconds now. They have announced, Speaker Boehner and Senator Orrin Hatch has announced the special members of Congress and Senate who have now leaving the chambers to go out to escort Prime Minister Bejamin Netanyahu into the chambers, which will take place here just any moment. But quickly, your thoughts on today.
Exciting. Well, you know, in his speech to AIPAC yesterday, he said it was a critical time. And it is a critical time. Did you notice that he mentioned Jerusalem as the eternal city, eternal undivided capital?
Wow.
So this is this may be the most important speech of our lifetime, Perry.
It certainly could be, and it's unbelievable that no members of the administration are there. The president has ordered the ambassador to Israel not to be there, and 55 members of Congress have chosen not to be there.
Really, that's a lot of that's Congressional Black Caucus. They feel Obama was insulted, but they're really insulting Israel now. So.
Well, the bigger person of this is Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Yes.
He's acting like the adult here. He's going to go there and say, look, I have a moral obligation to protect my people. Truly,
and a very smart man, MIT educated, went to high school here in America, knows America, understands America, and stands for Israel.
All right. Let's switch over to the Chambers Lives. We're expecting now the announcement of from the Speaker. The protocol. Was there a violation, in your opinion, of the protocol?
I think there was. I don't, you know, they apologized for it. I think it was one of these situations where if they'd called the White House ahead, the White House could have said, don't do it. And if the White House said, don't do it, and they did it, then it would be a direct confrontation. And so they did the political thing. They did it and apologized later. That's done in politics all the time, as you well know, Perry.
Yeah, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission.
There you go.
Well, that's what happens. But on the other hand, it's Congress that can declare war, so therefore Congress should have the authority or the privilege of asking anybody that they want.
And there is a fair dispute over how to handle Iran. It's not proper to say this is political. This is a political country. We're a free country. The American people in 2010 voted in a conservative House, and then 2014 voted in a conservative Senate. The American people have made a statement that they want a counterbalance to the White House, to the executive branch. So Congress is being a counterbalance. Nothing wrong with that. It's the American way.
All right, Nancy Pelosi has decided to be there. She's on the floor. The camera just showed her there.
Yeah.
All right, of all things for Speaker Boehner to give to Prime Minister Bejamin Netanyahu today in recognition of this historic day is a bust of Winston Churchill.
I heard Steve Johnson's report on that, and he was spot on to remind people that President Obama sent the bust of Churchill back. That, in many ways, is a nub of the dispute, and Netanyahu certainly is a great figure like
Isn't
Churchill.
he the Winston Churchill of Israel's time?
I believe absolutely, and I think the election that's coming up in Israel in 2 weeks is a very serious election. We have to remember Israel is half secular, has a substantial liberal movement in the Labor Party, and they call it the Zionist something now. I heard one of your shows talking about that. But there is a liberal conservative struggle in Israel, just the way there is in the United States. And it's interesting that the United States, as basically a Christian country, is standing with Israel. And this is a pivotal moment whether we continue to stand.
Another little bit of history here today is the Vice President is conveniently, or they're whatever, gone. He's not there, who otherwise would be sitting at the podium with Speaker Boehner.
And that's particularly shameful, I think.
Yeah, I think that is.
As President of the Senate.
Yeah, he's not there, saying he's traveling. You know, he should have been there. With today's travel, he could have been there and elsewhere too. So, but the next in line is a Republican, Orrin Hatch, sitting there. That's kind of interesting, isn't it?
I'm glad to see that. You know, it's interesting that Netanyahu, in his speech to AIPAC, which is the most powerful, pro-Israel lobby, used the word mashpuka, which is a Yiddish word, to describe Israel's relationship with the United States, with America. And mashpuka is family. It's family. And we really are family. Netanyahu, Natan Sharansky, 10 years ago, wrote an article that anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism are the same thing, because it's a hostility to the people of God and under God America.
Have ever we seen in America's political history of this country, we're still one of the youngest on the face of the earth, seen such a disrespect for an ally, state?
No, I honestly, can you imagine Britain being treated like this? And Israel is as staunch an ally as Britain. And it is, by the way, a firm foothold in the Mideast for democracy. We have so much in common with Israel. They have been such a loyal ally. We are against fierce enemies, and this is a moment for us to remember that while Prime Minister Netanyahu gives his speech. This is really a pivotal moment, and you and I are serious that this may be the most important speech of our lifetime, and we lived through the Reagan era. Many, many great speeches have been given, but this is so pivotal in terms of where the Middle East goes and where the world follows.
Secretary of State John Kerry said that leaks of the proposed talk is inexcusable, but in today's world, how can you stop that, really? But the bottom line is we have seen some of the framework of what the Obama administration is proposing for this so-called agreement with Iran on nuclear disarmament. And Bob, there is nothing there. There is no teeth in this agreement.
We have to remember, along with the issue of whether we can prevent Iran from having a nuclear bomb, there are two corollary issues related to that. One is how the effect it's going to have on the other nations in the Mideast, and the other is the fact that Iran has developed missiles that are capable of delivering a bomb. The Shahib 3, that's one example. So all of these things, this isn't just a speech, and it isn't just a treaty that Obama is trying to negotiate. This has to do with what's going to happen in the world.
Okay. Prime Minister Bejamin Netanyahu has been introduced. He is now working his way down the aisle, and let me just say this, we'll go to it here. The escort committee is headed up, and you'll see pretty close behind Prime Minister Netanyahu, District 2 of the state of Oregon, Congressman Greg Walden. So let's go now, and he's been introduced. You'll hear the fanfare of him entering down the aisle. You can see it here and there. You can look at it over there.
Well, what do you want?
Okay. A little bit of a hiccup there in the feed. We'll get that straightened out. There it is. Again, he's been introduced. He's doing that incredible walk down the aisle.
Right, and there's going to be a lot of applauding, and then when he gets to the podium, there's going to be, again, applauding and cheering. We just have to remember how really popular Israel is, how important Israel is to our modern history. And so it's quite something.
The question I asked earlier is something to consider. Is that, by the way, in there, you guys might want to look at the Fox site.
See if they're having the same problem. Right?
Here's the issue. What if the Republicans didn't show up for a State of the Union address? Isn't this kind of the equivalent?
It's pretty close. It really is, because of the history we have with Israel. I mean, one of the things he said in the AIPAC speech is that we defend a common civilization against common threats. That common civilization, that's our connection with Britain as well. We share a real common root with Israel. And it's one reason why Netanyahu's speech was so carefully directed to Christians yesterday. Did you notice that? He really made an effort to reach out to Christians. And in fact, he actually reminded people that Israel has a Christian community that's, quote, growing and thriving, close quote. And you can be sure Israel is going to defend its Christians.
Yeah. Well, he's been introduced. He's now close to the podium, and we're going to go, and I think sit back, folks. You're in for a real treat here to hear this speech by the Prime Minister of Israel. This is the second time that he's been here under the Obama administration, where he's done a joint session of Congress. By the way, this speech is also being somewhat blacked out in Israel because of the election, which is only about 10, 15 days away.
Yeah, really.
And so they're not necessarily playing it there because they don't want to have an influence. But on the other hand, he's doing his moral obligation by coming to Congress and saying, hey, Israel's under attack. So here we are with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor of presenting to you the Prime Minister of Israel, His Excellency Benjamin Netanyahu. Speaker of the House, John Boehner, President Pro Temp, Senator Orrin Hatch, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, and House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy. I also want to acknowledge Senator Democratic Leader Harry Reid. Harry, it's good to see you back on your feet. I guess it's true what they say, you can't keep a good man down. My friends, I'm deeply humbled by the opportunity to speak for a third time before the most important legislative body in the world, the U.S. Congress. I want to thank you all for being here today. I know that my speech has been the subject of much controversy. I deeply regret that some perceive my being here as political. That was never my intention. I want to thank you, Democrats and Republicans, for your common support for Israel, year after year, decade after decade. I know that no matter on which side of the aisle you sit, you stand with Israel. The remarkable alliance between Israel and the United States has always been above politics. It must always remain above politics. Because America and Israel, we share a common destiny, the destiny of promised lands that cherish freedom and offer hope. Israel is grateful for the support of America's people and of America's presidents, from Harry Truman to Barack Obama. We appreciate all that President Obama has done for Israel. Now, some of that is widely known. Some of that is widely known, like strengthening security cooperation and intelligence sharing, opposing anti-Israel resolutions at the UN. Some of what the President has done for Israel is less well known. I called him in 2010 when we had the Carmel forest fire, and he immediately agreed to respond to my request for urgent aid. In 2011, we had our embassy in Cairo under siege, and again, he provided vital assistance at the crucial moment. Or his support for more missile interceptors during our operation last summer when we took on Hamas terrorists. In each of those moments, I called the President, and he was there. And some of what the President has done for Israel might never be known, because it touches on some of the most sensitive and strategic issues that arise between an American president and an Israeli prime minister. But I know it, and I will always be grateful to President Obama for that support. And Israel is grateful to you, the American Congress, for your support, for supporting us in so many ways, especially in generous military assistance and missile defense, including Iron Dome. Last summer, millions of Israelis were protected from thousands of Hamas rockets because this Capitol dome helped build our Iron Dome. Thank you, America. Thank you for everything you've done for Israel. My friends, I've come here today because as Prime Minister of Israel, I feel a profound obligation to speak to you about an issue that could well threaten the survival of my country and the future of my people: Iran's quest for nuclear weapons. We're an ancient people. In our nearly 4,000 years of history, many have tried repeatedly to destroy the Jewish people. Tomorrow night, on the Jewish holiday of Purim, we'll read the book of Esther. We'll read of a powerful Persian viceroy named Aman, who plotted to destroy the Jewish people some 2,500 years ago. But a courageous Jewish woman, Queen Esther, exposed the plot and gained for the Jewish people the right to defend themselves against their enemies. The plot was foiled. Our people were saved. Today, the Jewish people face another attempt by yet another Persian potentate to destroy us. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, spews the oldest hatred of anti-Semitism with the newest technology. He tweets that Israel must be annihilated. He tweets. You know, in Iran, there isn't exactly free internet. But he tweets in English that Israel must be destroyed. For those who believe that Iran threatens the Jewish state, but not the Jewish people, listen to Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, Iran's chief terrorist proxy. He said, "If all the Jews gather in Israel, it will save us the trouble of chasing them down around the world." But Iran's regime is not merely a Jewish problem, any more than the Nazi regime was merely a Jewish problem. The 6 million Jews murdered by the Nazis were but a fraction of the 60 million people killed in World War II. So too, Iran's regime poses a grave threat not only to Israel, but also to the peace of the entire world. To understand just how dangerous Iran would be with nuclear weapons, we must fully understand the nature of the regime. The people of Iran are very talented people. They're heirs to one of the world's great civilizations. But in 1979, they were hijacked by religious zealots who imposed on them immediately a dark and brutal dictatorship. That year, the zealots drafted a constitution, a new one for Iran. It directed the Revolutionary Guards not only to protect Iran's borders, but also to fulfill the ideological mission of jihad. The regime's founder, Ayatollah Khomeini, exhorted his followers to export the revolution throughout the world. I'm standing here in Washington, D.C., and the difference is so stark. America's founding document promises life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Iran's founding document pledges death, tyranny, and the pursuit of jihad. And as states are collapsing across the Middle East, Iran is charging into the void to do just that. Iran's goons in Gaza, its lackeys in Lebanon, its Revolutionary Guards on the Golan Heights are clutching Israel with three tentacles of terror. Backed by Iran, Assad is slaughtering Syrians. Backed by Iran, Shiite militias are rampaging through Iraq. Backed by Iran, Houthis are seizing control of Yemen, threatening the strategic straits at the mouth of the Red Sea. Along with the Straits of Hormuz, that would give Iran a second choke point on the world's oil supply. Just last week, near Hormuz, Iran carried out a military exercise blowing up a mock U.S. aircraft carrier. That's just last week, while they're having nuclear talks with the United States. But unfortunately, for the last 36 years, Iran's attacks against the United States have been anything but mock, and the targets have been all too real. Iran took dozens of Americans hostage in Tehran, murdered hundreds of American soldiers, Marines in Beirut, and was responsible for killing and maiming thousands of American servicemen and women in Iraq and Afghanistan. Beyond the Middle East, Iran attacks America and its allies through its global terror network. It blew up the Jewish Community Center and the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires. It helped al-Qaeda bomb U.S. embassies in Africa. It even attempted to assassinate the Saudi ambassador right here in Washington, D.C. In the Middle East, Iran now dominates 4 Arab capitals: Baghdad, Damascus, Beirut, and Sana'a. And if Iran's aggression is left unchecked, more will surely follow. So at a time when many hope that Iran will join the community of nations, Iran is busy gobbling up the nations. We must all stand together to stop Iran's march of conquest, subjugation, and terror. Now, 2 years ago, we were told to give President Rouhani and Foreign Minister Zarif a chance to bring change and moderation to Iran. Some change, some moderation. Rouhani's government hangs gays, persecutes Christians, jails journalists, and executes even more prisoners than before. Last year, the same Zarif who charms Western diplomats laid a wreath at the grave of Imad Murnia. Imad Murnia is the terrorist mastermind who spilled more American blood than any other terrorist besides Osama bin Laden. I'd like to see someone ask him a question about that. Iran's regime is as radical as ever. Its cries of death to America, that same America that it calls the great Satan, as loud as ever. Now, this shouldn't be surprising, because the ideology of Iran's revolutionary regime is deeply rooted in militant Islam. And that's why this regime will always be an enemy of America. And don't be fooled. The battle between Iran and ISIS doesn't turn Iran into a friend of America. Iran and ISIS are competing for the crown of militant Islam. One calls itself the Islamic Republic, the other calls itself the Islamic State. Both want to impose a militant Islamic empire, first on the region and then on the entire world. They just disagree among themselves who will be the ruler of that empire. In this deadly game of thrones, there's no place for America or for Israel. No peace for Christians, Jews, or Muslims who don't share the Islamist medieval creed. No rights for women, no freedom for anyone. So when it comes to Iran and ISIS, the enemy of your enemy is your enemy. The difference is that ISIS is armed with butcher knives, captured weapons, and YouTube, whereas Iran could soon be armed with intercontinental ballistic missiles and nuclear bombs. We must always remember, I'll say it one more time, the greatest danger facing our world is the marriage of militant Islam with nuclear weapons. To defeat ISIS and let Iran get nuclear weapons would be to win the battle but lose the war. We can't let that happen. But that, my friends, is exactly what could happen if the deal now being negotiated is accepted by Iran. That deal will not prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. It would all but guarantee that Iran gets those weapons, lots of them. Let me explain why. While the final deal has not yet been signed, certain elements of any potential deal are now a matter of public record. You don't need intelligence agencies and secret information to know this. You can Google it. Absent a dramatic change, we know for sure that any deal with Iran will include two major concessions to Iran. The first major concession would leave Iran with a vast nuclear infrastructure, providing it with a short breakout time to the bomb. Breakout time is the time it takes to amass enough weapons-grade uranium or plutonium for a nuclear bomb. According to the deal, not a single nuclear facility would be demolished. Thousands of centrifuges used to enrich uranium would be left spinning. Thousands more would be temporarily disconnected, but not destroyed. Because Iran's nuclear program would be left largely intact, Iran's breakout time would be very short, about a year by US assessment, even shorter by Israel's. And if Iran's work on advanced centrifuges, faster and faster centrifuges, is not stopped, that breakout time could still be shorter, a lot shorter. True, certain restrictions would be imposed on Iran's nuclear program, and Iran's adherence to those restrictions would be supervised by international inspectors. But here's the problem. You see, inspectors document violations. They don't stop them. Inspectors knew when North Korea broke to the bomb, but that didn't stop anything. North Korea turned off the cameras, kicked out the inspectors, Within a few years, it got the bomb. Now we're warned that within 5 years, North Korea could have an arsenal of 100 nuclear bombs. Like North Korea, Iran too has defied international inspectors. It's done that on at least 3 separate occasions: 2005, 2006, 2010. Like North Korea, Iran broke the locks, shut off the cameras. Now, I know this is not going to come as a shock to any of you, but Iran not only defies inspectors, it also plays a pretty good game of hide and cheat with them. The UN's nuclear watchdog agency, the IAEA, said again yesterday that Iran still refuses to come clean about its military nuclear program. Iran was also caught twice, not once, twice, operating secret nuclear facilities in Natanz and Qom, facilities that inspectors didn't even know existed. Right now, Iran could be hiding nuclear facilities that we don't know about, the US and Israel. As the former head of inspections for the IAEA said in 2013, he said, "If there's no undeclared installation today in Iran, it'll be the first time in 20 years that it doesn't have one." Iran has proven time and again that it cannot be trusted. And that's why the first major concession is a source of grave concern. It leaves Iran with a vast nuclear infrastructure and relies on inspectors to prevent a breakout. That concession creates a real danger that Iran could get to the bomb by violating the deal. But the second major concession creates an even greater danger, that Iran could get to the bomb by keeping the deal. Because virtually all the restrictions on Iran's nuclear program will automatically expire in about a decade. Now, a decade may seem like a long time in political life, but it's the blink of an eye in the life of a nation. It's a blink of an eye in the life of our children. We all have a responsibility to consider what will happen when Iran's nuclear capabilities are virtually unrestricted and all the sanctions will have been lifted. Iran would then be free to build a huge nuclear capacity that could produce many, many nuclear bombs. Iran's supreme leader says that openly. He says Iran plans to have 190,000 centrifuges, not 6,000 or even the 19,000 that Iran has today, but 10 times that amount. 190,000 centrifuges enriching uranium. With this massive capacity, Iran could make the fuel for an entire nuclear arsenal, and this in a matter of weeks, once it makes that decision. My longtime friend, John Kerry, Secretary of State, confirmed last week that Iran could legitimately possess that massive centrifuge capacity when the deal expires. Now, I want you to think about that. The foremost sponsor of global terrorism could be weeks away from having enough enriched uranium for an entire arsenal of nuclear weapons, and this with full international legitimacy. And by the way, if Iran's intercontinental ballistic missile program is not part of the deal, and so far, Iran refuses to even put it on the negotiating table, while Iran could have the means to deliver that nuclear arsenal to the far-reach corners of the earth, including to every part of the United States. So you see, my friends, this deal has 2 major concessions. One, leaving Iran with a vast nuclear program. And 2, lifting the restrictions on that program in about a decade. That's why this deal is so bad. It doesn't block Iran's path to the bomb, it paves Iran's path to the bomb. So why would anyone make this deal? Because they hope that Iran will change for the better in the coming years? Or they believe that the alternative to this deal is worse? Well, I disagree. I don't believe that Iran's radical regime will change for the better after this deal. This regime has been in power for 36 years, and its voracious appetite for aggression grows with each passing year. This deal would only whet Iran's appetite for more. Would Iran be less aggressive when sanctions are removed and its economy is stronger? If Iran is gobbling up 4 countries right now while it's under sanctions, how many more countries will Iran devour when sanctions are lifted? Would Iran fund less terrorism when it has mountains of cash with which to fund more terrorism? Why should Iran's radical regime change for the better when it can enjoy the best of both worlds, aggression abroad, prosperity at home? This is a question that everyone asks in our region. Israel's neighbors, Iran's neighbors, know that Iran will become even more aggressive and sponsor even more terrorism when its economy is unshackled and it's been given a clear path to the bomb. And many of these neighbors say they'll respond by racing to get nuclear weapons of their own. So this deal won't change Iran for the better. It will only change the Middle East for the worse. A deal that's supposed to prevent nuclear proliferation would instead spark a nuclear arms race in the most dangerous part of the planet. This deal won't be a farewell to arms. It would be a farewell to arms control. And the Middle East would soon be crisscrossed by nuclear tripwires. A region where small skirmishes can trigger big wars would turn into a nuclear tinderbox. If anyone thinks this deal kicks the can down the road, think again. When we get down that road, we'll face a much more dangerous Iran, a Middle East littered with nuclear bombs, and a countdown to a potential nuclear nightmare. Ladies and gentlemen, I've come here today to tell you we don't have to bet the security of the world on the hope that Iran will change for the better. We don't have to gamble with our future and with our children's future. We can insist that restrictions on Iran's nuclear program not be lifted for as long as Iran continues its aggression in the region and in the world. Before lifting those restrictions, the world should demand that Iran do 3 things. First, stop its aggression against its neighbors in the Middle East. Second, stop supporting terrorism around the world. And third, stop threatening to annihilate my country, Israel, the one and only Jewish state. If the world powers are not prepared to insist that Iran change its behavior before a deal is signed, at the very least, they should insist that Iran change its behavior before a deal expires. If Iran changes its behavior, the restrictions would be lifted. If Iran doesn't change its behavior, the restrictions should not be lifted. If Iran wants to be treated like a normal country, let it act like a normal country. My friends, what about the argument that there is no alternative to this deal? That Iran's nuclear know-how cannot be erased? That its nuclear program is so advanced that the best we can do is delay the inevitable, which is essentially what the proposed deal seeks to do? Well, nuclear know-how without nuclear infrastructure doesn't get you very much. A race car driver without a car can't drive. A pilot without a plane can't fly. Without thousands of centrifuges, tons of enriched uranium, or heavy water facilities, Iran can't make nuclear weapons. Iran's nuclear program can be rolled back well beyond the current proposal by insisting on a better deal and keeping up the pressure on a very vulnerable regime, especially given the recent collapse in the price of oil. Now, if Iran threatens to walk away from the table, and this often happens in a Persian bazaar, call their bluff. They'll be back because they need the deal a lot more than you do. And by maintaining the pressure on Iran and on those who do business with Iran, you have the power to make them need it even more. My friends, for over a year, we've been told that no deal is better than a bad deal. Well, this is a bad deal. It's a very bad deal. We're better off without it. Now we're being told that the only alternative to this bad deal is war. That's just not true. The alternative to this bad deal is a much better deal. A better deal that doesn't leave Iran with a vast nuclear infrastructure and such a short breakout time. A better deal that keeps the restrictions on Iran's nuclear program in place until Iran's aggression ends. A better deal that won't give Iran an easy path to the bomb. A better deal that Israel and its neighbors may not like, but with which we could live, literally. And no country has a greater stake. No country has a greater stake than Israel in a good deal that peacefully removes this threat. Ladies and gentlemen, history has placed us at a fateful crossroads. We must now choose between two paths. One path leads to a bad deal that will at best curtail Iran's nuclear ambitions for a while. But it will inexorably lead to a nuclear-armed Iran whose unbridled aggression will inevitably lead to war. The second path, however difficult, could lead to a much better deal that would prevent a nuclear-armed Iran, a nuclearized Middle East, and the horrific consequences of both to all of humanity. You don't have to read Robert Frost to know. You have to live life to know that the difficult path is usually the one less traveled. But it will make all the difference for the future of my country the security of the Middle East, and the peace of the world, the peace we all desire. My friends, standing up to Iran is not easy. Standing up to dark and murderous regimes never is. With us today is Holocaust survivor and Nobel Prize winner Elie Wiesel. Elie, your life and work inspire us to give meaning to the words, never again. And I wish I could promise you, Elie, that the lessons of history have been learned. I can only urge the leaders of the world not to repeat the mistakes of the past. Not to sacrifice the future for the present, not to ignore aggression in the hopes of gaining an illusory peace. But I can guarantee you this: the days when the Jewish people remain passive in the face of genocidal enemies, those days are over. We are no longer scattered among the nations, powerless to defend ourselves. We've restored our sovereignty in our ancient home, and the soldiers who defend our home have boundless courage. For the first time in 100 generations, we, the Jewish people, can defend ourselves. This is why, as Prime Minister of Israel, I can promise you one more thing. Even if Israel has to stand alone, Israel will stand. But I know that Israel does not stand alone. I know that America stands with Israel. I know that you stand with Israel. You stand with Israel because you know that the story of Israel is not only the story of the Jewish people, but of the human spirit that refuses again and again to succumb to history's horrors. facing me, right up there in the gallery, overlooking all of us in this august chamber, is the image of Moses. Moses led our people from slavery to the gates of the Promised Land. And before the people of Israel entered the land of Israel, Moses gave us a message that has steeled our resolve for thousands of years. I leave you with his message today. Chizku v'imtzu, al tiru ve'al ta'artzu mipnehem. Be strong and resolute, neither fear nor dread them. My friends, may Israel and America always stand together, strong and resolute. May we neither fear nor dread the challenges ahead. May we face the future with confidence, strength, and hope. May God bless the state of Israel, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all. You're wonderful. Thank you, America. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I think, Bob, we just heard perhaps one of the most incredible speeches of our lifetime.
Truly.
I think we have just witnessed a prophet of our day.
Yes.
We read in the Old Testament the various prophets and how they warned Israel and spoke out. We just experienced a very biblical moment with Prime Minister Bejamin Netanyahu. I think that was a prophetic speech. It was brilliantly delivered.
Really?
Brilliantly delivered. And quite frankly, he was the bigger of the men that are kind of at odds over this by getting up and paying tribute where tribute was due.
Right, in the beginning, yeah.
But drawing an incredible line in the sand when it comes to Israel, or when it comes to Iran, that Israel just cannot allow it to have nuclear weapons. I think he said in a roundabout way that we'll stand alone. And I know you'll stand with us, but he also said we'll stand alone.
Yes.
Which basically says, you know, if you're not there, we're going to go in.
Right. We have a lot to talk about tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because the speech breaks down into some very important nuggets. But I think the headline news in terms of what we're talking about is that he says that we have a choice between two paths. One deal that leads to a nuclear Iran and inevitable war.
Yeah.
And I think that, and part of the point he's making is that Iran's breakout potential makes it nuclear.
Right.
You know, if they can get to a nuclear bomb in 6 months, they're a nuclear Iran. And he calls it inevitable war. And then his promise that even if Israel has to stand alone, Israel will stand, which means there's going to be war if we're the only ones to wage it, if there's a nuclear Iran, because it's an existential threat.
There's no question about it. Now, he also pointed out the elements of the proposed deal that's on the table and how flawed those elements really are.
Truly.
They really don't accomplish anything. They don't disband Iran's nuclear program. If anything, and kicking the can down the road, basically he said 10 years in political life is an eternity. Political life, or 10 years in a country's life is a blink of the eye, you know. And for the sake of our children, But look, I think what we have here is, what is the Congress going to do with this speech? What's the obligation of Congress now when they've heard a man get up and give factual warning that this cannot be allowed? And what is the Congress's alternative? But what can the Congress do against a rogue president who's governing and legislating by executive order?
Right.
What can they do to stop this deal?
You know, we said a couple things off the air that come to mind for me. One, I just want to make sure I mention, because it was chilling when you said it, that we have in Netanyahu a man who defends America better than our president does.
Right.
And that's true. And I think that that where we're going with this. The other interesting element that I mentioned is, what are the candidates? What are the GOP candidates going to do? Because if I were a candidate, I think I'd seriously consider saying, any deal the president signs, if I'm elected president, any deal the president agrees to that is not also agreed to clearly by Congress, with everything on the table, I will not accept as president, which immediately makes a statement undermining whatever happens, unless Congress, unless the Senate specifically, which has the responsibility to ratify treaties, agrees.
Well, this is the stand-up. This is the line in the sand that this administration has drawn. I have to tell you, as important as this speech was, and beautifully delivered as it was, it even puts a darker cloud of disrespect over the administration for not being there. There was nothing in this speech that was pointed. If anything, he certainly strengthened verbally the relationship between Israel and the United States. He gave the president unbelievable credit,
yes,
and thanked him for many things that have been done. But on this particular issue, with this proposed nuclear agreement, whatever that looks like, this is not a good deal. And why we're allowing it, I don't know. But can and will the Congress exercise its power to stifle the president on this? That's going to be the big thing. So far, they haven't done a thing against his executive orders, not a thing. Quite frankly, he should be impeached for it.
Yeah.
So does the new Congress, Republican-controlled House and Senate, have the fortitude to stop this deal?
Yeah, I say, you know, I'll tell you, honestly, I think the candidates can also have influence on this, because a lot of people think there's a good chance that Republicans will win in 2016, win the White House, win the executive branch. So it's going to matter what the candidates say. But then you're right. Do we have, in the Speaker of the House, in Boehner, do we really have a man that's going to be willing to stand up to Obama? And there are ways to stand up short of impeachment. I mean, the problem with impeachment, of course, is the Democratic Party has sadly become really treacherous. And they, no matter what the justice is, no matter what the facts are, no matter what the legitimacy of an impeachment is, the Democratic Party will block a conviction in the Senate. And the House knows that. Just like with the Clinton impeachment, there was no honesty in that impeachment on the part of the Senate. The Senate refused to listen to the case, and they would do the same thing with Obama.
Well, I'm glad you're back from the grave. I don't know where you've been hiding, I do, but I want to get into the whole issue about Speaker Boehner. Why hasn't he been more forceful in his management of the House? He could be sending to this president bill after bill after bill, knowing that they're going to be vetoed, but at the same time staking out the territory for the 2016 election cycle.
Right, and I'm still, of course, hopeful that that's what he's going to do, but
it doesn't appear so.
The early record is not good.
No, it's not good. And so, well, anyway, you're going to be with us tomorrow, Bob. We'll continue this on. But I think, folks, what you saw and heard today was historic. There's no question about it. This is a moment in world history that will go down far beyond our lives, unless the Lord tarries. And I got to tell you, he basically was a prophet today. I think what we saw today was a modern-day biblical Israeli prophet standing to the microphone, the world microphone, and giving a prophecy to the world. The question is, will we heed the warning? All right, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed it, and be with us next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, theDove.us.